Alright, it's nighttime, it's evening on December the 12th, 2016, and I'm back to do a little more work on the bike here. I think, remember where I got to last time? I was working on improving this dent, which I was very pleased with the way I was able to take a hot glue dent puller and pull this dent on the tank out and got that looking pretty good. And then I attempted to pull the dent, the smaller dent that was caused when the accident happened, and basically it looks like what happened on this bike to I guess bend the forks. It turned the forks hard to the right, and this bracket bumped into the tank, put a little dent in it. Well, I attempted to pull that with the hot glue puller as well, and instead of pulling the dent, it pulled the paint right off. And so I think I have made a little improvement in it, but really made a mistake in trying to do that. Lack of experience, experimentation was what got me there. Sometimes that happens, especially when you're trying something you haven't done before. And so that's part of the learning. Frustrating though it was, I wish I hadn't done that. If I had been smarter, I would have tried to come from underneath, from inside the tank with some kind of a rod, and I would have tried to push that dent out and not had to repaint it. So now I'm faced with the dilemma of how do I fix this spot that the paint's removed from. I still need to come back in with a rod and smooth this dent out, and the question that I now have is, do I try to paint that one section and try to blend it? Do I try to repaint the whole tank? I really don't want to repaint the whole tank. The rest of the tank is in pretty good shape. There's a mild scratch or two on it, but really it looks good. And I really don't want to paint that tank. So I think I'm going to be looking for options to touch up that spot and maybe even come over the top of it with some kind of maybe a metallic decal or something that kind of dresses it up. Maybe press that dent out and maybe touch the paint up with some touch-up paint. And then I may come over the top of this with some kind of little dent, with some kind of little detail that made it look like I'm dressing it up. Which will be fine, and it'll look good, and that'll cover it. So I'll do something there, but not sure quite what. So since last time also, I think I had said that I was going to try to fix things working forward, so I really was going to try to fix that brake pedal next. Unfortunately, and this brake pedal was what got one of the things that got wrapped around in whatever collision happened with this thing. As you recall, I bought this at an auction, so I don't really know exactly what happened to it, but what appears to have happened in this collision is somehow this front end got racked hard, twisted, and I think the bike probably went down on something and somehow hung this pedal. What's interesting is I don't see any damage anywhere else. There's no scuffing here, no scuffing on the signal. There's no damage on the side of the bike. So whatever happened was not a real bad crash, but it definitely wrecked the dickens out of this set of forks, and it's got it all twisted up. So good news is that today my replacement forks came. I bought a set of replacement forks from a very similar model of a Honda Shadow, and those forks really weren't supposed to be here for another week, but thanks to UPS they arrived early, so I have those upstairs. I'll bring them down in a minute. And what I think the objective is going to be tonight is I think I'm going to try to get this wheel off and get these forks out and maybe start taking these old forks apart just to look at them and trying to decide how far I go with swapping out parts on the new system. So the new fork assembly includes the whole triple tree, the shaft that goes into the stem, both this upper bracket, lower bracket, and the upper bracket. So I've got this whole assembly in new parts. What I'm not sure is, are these parts damaged at all? I don't think, they don't look damaged, but with the fact that this did get twisted around, it is possible that there could be some damage. This actually feels very smooth. I don't feel any play in this motion. When I look and inspect, as nearly as I can tell on the stem, I don't see anything that looks bent or out of position. But that's part of what I want to do, is to get in here, get these things apart, and really inspect this good, make sure there's no damage, make sure that there's nothing cracked in this attachment point for the stem, and that basically it's going to be roadworthy and safe, and so I will do that. But what I'm going to do first, I think, is start taking these forks off and get started with that. So with that said, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up and I'm going to bring down my new assembly just to have that handy, and maybe take a look at that, and then start taking these forks off. So that's what I'm going to do this evening. One other thing I forgot to mention just a moment ago is that also, since the last time in getting ready to work on the forks, I had jacked the bike up. And so I didn't film that, but I'll tell you how I did it, how I went about that. So looking underneath the bike, looked like for whatever reason, the oil pan and the bottom of the engine extends down below the frame, which surprised me a little bit. I wouldn't think that they would have designed it that way, but they did. And so there was no good place to lift that didn't touch that. May have been fine, may have not hurt the motorcycle at all. That's probably actually pretty strong parts, and so it could lift up the, as it lifts the engine, that's where the bulk of the weight is. So it might have been fine to press there, but I wasn't comfortable with it. So what I did was I got a 2x10 and I put a 2x4 and screwed that in place where it would go under this frame section here. And then I came and I took another 2x4 and I got under the frame on the opposite side and positioned it so that I could get it under the frame there, such that it didn't touch the bottom of the engine or anything I didn't want it to lift on. So from there, what I did was I took a little scissor jack, which is under the motorcycle, and I just lifted up one side and got a couple of bricks under it, and then I moved over to the other side and lifted it up and got a couple of bricks under that, and I just seesawed back and forth with that jack stand, bringing it up with that jack until I could get it high enough to get these two jack stands underneath it. So then I brought my jack stands in and I got it positioned, and so I've got the jack stand under each side and a jack under the middle, and this is really, it's solid. It's very solid. I'm not worried about it. Can work on that just fine. So from here, I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to bring down the new assembly, and we'll get that unboxed and look at it, and then I'm going to start taking this old set of forks off and start making progress on getting this thing rebuilt and running. Okay, I am bringing in my new fork assembly, and so if you're wondering where I got this, where did I get a fork assembly for a bike like this? I bought it on eBay, believe it or not. So I went and researched and looked, and you say, well, how do you know if you're getting a good one? I'm not sure. I looked at the pictures. You can ask questions, send notes to the owner. But there was a guy who was parting out. I think it was a 2005, maybe in 2006. It's very close to the same year as this bike. Parting out a Shadow 600, and he had this fork assembly, and it was all together. So I bought the whole thing, thinking that there's probably damage to multiple sections of this. So obviously these upper tubes are damaged. It's possible that that was about the only thing damaged, but my guess is probably the axle is damaged with the twisting. I'm hoping that this front wheel is not damaged. I'm hoping that it was stiff enough that it didn't deflect and that it didn't bend anything. When I rotate it and eyeball it as nearly as I can in this kind of odd and damaged state, there's nothing obvious that's warped or out of place. That doesn't mean it's not, and I will get it off and get it checked and verify that. And so I'm hoping not to have to spend money to replace this front wheel, because I think it may be good. And so my belief is that probably these lower sections are okay. May not be, that's okay, because I've got replacements. Caliper should be okay. Speedometer, cable, speedometer input, I'm hoping is okay, and I don't see anything blatantly obvious there. The rotor looks okay, it doesn't look warped, so I'm really hoping that the bulk of the problem is in these two tubes. As nearly as I can tell, looking at these plates, this upper plate and this lower plate, I don't see anything wrong there. I'm a little nervous about that with the lick, the way it twisted these forks, and there appears to be a little twisting up here as well. I'm worried that the shaft that's mounted to this lower section that goes up through the stem, I'm a little bit worried that could be bent, but we'll get it apart and look at it. But my first order of business is let's get these forks off. But before I do that, I'm going to open this. I'm going to go find me a knife real quick, and I'm right back. So I'll take my utility knife and let's see what we got. I'm anxious to know. Did I spend my money wisely, or did I invest in a disappointment? So, it's packaged there. Too bad. Let's see what we got. Yeah. There she blows. So there's my new assembly. First blush, it looks pretty good. So, here's what we got. Got new forks, replacement forks, as well as the bearings, as well as the shaft. And so I'm expecting I probably will swap it all out. And as I'm looking at this, it looks pretty good. I see a couple of points with a little bit of rubbing, but it looks like where a cable rub here. But my guess is the one I've got is similar, so close. So I've got to decide which of the parts of this assembly do I use and which do I leave. So what I'm going to do first then is let's get this thing apart and see what we've got. What I'm most worried about on the old system is this shaft and whether it got twisted when these forks bent. Is there any chance that shaft got bent around? If it did not, then I may not mess with it. But first order of business is let's start disassembly.